after the Lions in OT down Southern Cal on the road. Frank Bodani of the York Daily Record, Mike Gross of LNP, Andrew Callista here. Reach out to us at BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast at gmail.com. Gentlemen, an exciting game. Penn State goes on the road in the Big Ten. Still seems weird saying it. And pulls one out at USC in a game. I got to tell you, I didn't think they kind of deserved to win to start. But, man, did they come up with the horses to finish. Frank, always optimist. You go first.
Well, I think, wow, there's so much going on. Drew Allar, to me, though, took the big step today. And I say that because of the way he performed along with mistakes, the way he fought through the struggles. And he has never, to me, has had to make the fourth down throws with the game on the line, made both of them. He ran the ball well, and he's just the key to it all. Not the biggest hero, maybe in a sense, but that's
definitely not the biggest. Definitely not the biggest hero on this night. I mean, we all know who that was. Yeah, I thought it was really a spectacular game. I think it was one of the best regular season games that I've covered. There was a lot of crazy stuff. I thought from an X and O standpoint, it was really interesting. I thought Kotelnicki and Lincoln Riley were pulling off some amazing stuff from a play calling standpoint and an X and O standpoint. But Tyler Warren, I mean, and after the game, Franklin, he went beyond. I think he's the best tight end in the country. He said, I think he's one of the best players in the country. And the way they're using him, that doesn't seem like a crazy statement at all. I mean, on a play where he snaps the ball to Bro Bermula, who lateral passes it to Drew Allar, who throws it to Warren, who's not even open by the time the ball gets there, gets blatantly interfered with for the second time, neither of them called, and makes a spectacular catch. I mean, and his numbers were unbelievable, and he was unbelievable. He's Batman. He's a superhero.
17 catches, from what I see, ties the all-time record, right, for tight end receptions in a game ever in the FBS.
Somebody said the most ever by a USC opponent, not just a tight end, any player.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on.
All kinds of stuff. I'm not sure that's true. I'll have to confirm that. But, yeah, he was really something.
Well, you guys covered everything. That's the show. We're done. You guys covered everything. No.
Well, there's a lot more to it than that.
Before we get into the X's and O's, Frank, I want to go back because this is a point both you and Mike have made. Everybody's made this, and we brought up because people were talking. Drew Allar is a game manager. Not that we here were saying that. It's just people were saying it. So we're responding to that. I mean, did Drew Allar go out and win the game with those 2 fourth down throws?
You could say that because without them, and he's throwing to a guy that really, you might not have trust in, right? I mean, Julian Fleming really didn't come down with his balls earlier and the passes earlier, but he stayed with it. And Drew does not make those throws last year in one way because the second one, he had to climb the pocket, and move around, find his guy. He would not do that last year in that way to me. So, and to have the mistakes that he had to own going into those plays, that drive, to have the crowd kind of howling at his back, it's a step. I mean, it's a big step. I mean, one game doesn't make him, but I think it's when you have definitely your biggest game yet to come and maybe a couple of your biggest games yet to come, you had to have that type of effort if Penn State wants to go anywhere near where they hope to go. He couldn't just be what you're saying, right? He can't just be a game manager the rest of the year and Penn State get into the playoffs and do anything. That's not going to happen. So
yeah, that was. I mean, he's not. This is not John Schaefer we're talking about here, and I'm not ripping John Schaefer. Obviously, it was for you young folks. He was the quarterback of a national championship team at Penn State, and he really was a game manager. But this kid is much more than that. And I think anybody who said that was being silly, just because he was overly cautious in his first year as a starter. Well, he's not overly cautious anymore. And let's just full accounting here. I mean, the one interception he had today was just a Hail Mary at the end. That doesn't count. But the other two were really bad throws and bad decisions. They were really bad. But I mean, those fourth downs that Frank just mentioned, I mean, it was a 4th and 7 and a 4th and 10. I mean, and big time throws in fairly tight spots, good plays by Fleming to make to close the deal. But yeah, Allar's more than a game manager. That's for sure.
All right, so we covered Drew Allar. We're going to get through a bunch of Tyler Warren stuff and everything, but let's stay with the positive. Keep the positive vibes going. You cannot name Tyler Warren as a Lions roar because he would get them all. He would get them all, and he would hoard them up, though. So I'm going to challenge you guys. Who's getting the Lions roar, and it's not Tyler Warren on the offensive side of the ball?
I'll go Ryan Barker, the kicker, because he's now made all 6 of his field goals when we didn't know if he was even better than third string at any point. There's a walk-on who he makes all 3 and then makes the pressure pack kick. I mean, all 4 of them were solid kicks. And I mean, Penn State, if Ryan Barker isn't there, they don't win the game because they don't have a guy who can make 4 field goals in a row that we know of until now.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought, and this is one of the things I sort of tweeted out at halftime. It looked to me like Lincoln Riley did a great job of play calling to minimize Penn State's pass rush. I thought Penn State play called offensively to sort of minimize or mask their lack of wide receiver play. But in the second half, their wide receivers came up pretty big. I'm going to say Harrison Wallace made a couple of big plays. So I'll say he's the unsung hero, just to throw somebody else in there. But all 4 of those receivers that they use made a couple of plays in the second half. Now, Warren's numbers were insane, but all 4 of those guys together, I thought, when it seemed like, as you noticed last year, there were games where it just seemed like the wide receivers were not part of the game plan even. Well, that's sort of how the first half felt tonight. And man, Kodal Nicky was dancing as fast as he can with some of these play calls. I thought he was doing he was really deep into what is an encyclopedic playbook. But yeah, so I'm going to, it's maybe an offbeat pick, but I'll say Harrison.
I like it. By the way, I seem distracted. The local NBC station now is going over out here in LA, and they just showed the pass interference that Penn State kind of got away with. And we'll touch on that more because USC got away with a lot of pass interferences as well. They let the DBs play.
Yeah, I did not think the game was very well officiated.
My guy is Vega. I just think the way Andy Kotelnicki's using him, and it's such a decoy. And
tonight it was a decoy. Yeah,
the stat sheet. It's just throwing it off, and the fact that he's able to do it and lining up at fullback. Thank you, but there's a fullback finally. We could say it. Granted, it's an offensive lineman back there, but there's so much that I think that throws off and allows them to do that. He has the ability to get out there and do it, and something's going to happen off of that. We know that. So that's kind of my unsung hero in Lions roar. Obviously, there was a lot of guys. Nick Singleton deserves a mention, I thought, for his game. All right, now let's stay with the pause. Just go into Tyler Warren. I mean, I've never seen a college football played like that. I've never seen any type of play like that. That trumps the centipede formation. That trumps 10 guys on the line of scrimmage or 9 guys on the line of scrimmage. Have you guys ever seen that in your professional career?
I've never seen anybody snap the ball from the end of the offensive line. I don't remember ever seeing that. Just that. I
would not have thought it would be even legal to do what they did.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. It
was a swinging gate on extra points, basically, except at the 50, and it's a touchdown pass.
The good thing is, so I'm in New York watching this on TV, and the announcers at one point are saying, how do they have time during the week to practice all of this? Which kind of is fair in a way because most of it looks pretty smooth.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I mean, it's smooth enough where you watching, even on TV, would not have picked up on what was even going on really at that point. You would not know Tyler Warren was hiking the football, I don't think.
Yeah, we didn't realize that. I was sitting there with Scarcella and Wogey and John Sauber, and we didn't realize until Sauber played the replay on his computer that he had snapped the ball. We didn't. Right. None of us knew it until. Right. But that I had never seen before. I thought maybe they overused the Prabula package a couple times a little bit. To put him in there on first down and not really do anything with it, I thought
I don't mind it though. I like if you're going to put him in, not having him be the point person every play.
Yeah, you don't have to run it every time. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because then if he goes in there and you're thinking, well, he's definitely keeping it and he gives the ball off or does something else, it's kind of the other point the announcers made is early on in the broadcast is how does USC know which way any play is going at the beginning of this game? The way they, especially on their first drive, the way they were handling things. Like
first drive was really impressive from an X and O standpoint, and then they got the offensive pass interference. But how about the play on that drive when they had 3rd and short? I think it was maybe even 4th. I don't remember if it was 4th.
Oh yeah,
3rd and short, and Warren's in motion, and he stops and takes the direct snap from center and runs straight ahead for like 5 yards. I thought that was very cool too. It's sort of amazing that they didn't get the touchdown out of that drive, but that was a cool drive.
Warren's most dominating individual performance to me for a Penn State player since Saquon Barkley again at Iowa.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, that's a good call, Frank. That's a really good call
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the I think those are the 2 best games, at least by a guy who's touching the ball a lot, a skill position guy who's making a lot of plays. I think those are the 2 best games I've seen a Penn State player play. And interestingly, at the very end of the game, that Iowa game that we were talking about, somebody else made the play to win it. Mm-hmm. And down the stretch tonight, it wasn't like they were just a steady diet of Warren. They did get the ball to other people and even Allar ran it a couple times effectively too. So
the time he tucked it, when he tucked it to get forward, I thought that was a big play. Yeah, because I saw it at first he missed. It seemed like he was late on the read, pulled it back down, and then had the wherewithal to keep going through the progression. And then when he tucked it, gave a little bit of a juke, fell forward. Positive yards. At first, when he got laid over to that first read, I thought this is going to be picked, and he pulled it back down. And speaking of picks, I want to go back to that first one. That only happens because of the Julian Fleming drop. Julian Fleming, and Frank, you already touched on it. The confidence to go back to him on that drive.
Yeah.
And the first one, I thought Harrison Wallace was open underneath on the crossing route, passed on that one to go to Fleming. Julian Fleming's stat line in the first half was 1 offensive pass interference to negate 6 points for Penn State and 2 drops, one of which led to an interception.
Which was a real questionable call, though, that his pass interference. I mean, what's the letter of the law on that? I mean, the defender engaged him pretty much. Right?
That's what I don't know that rule well enough, honestly, to know if that was a good call or not.
That's a clear-cut call. I don't.
To me, that seems
it's a crapshoot. I will say this: I ran into one of the officials down on the field at In-N-Out Burger as I was getting dinner. Had a little brief conversation, just about the game, and I said after Penn State's opening drive with that OPI, DBs were allowed to do a lot of stuff. Was allowed to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I think Penn State benefited from it. I think Penn State's DBs were able to get really, really handsy. Obviously, Tyler Warren got interfered with from the USC defensive back on that touchdown. But, I mean.
Yeah, but I thought there was another one. There was on a 3rd down where I thought I mean, the ball was coming to Warren, and the guy just climbed on his back. I thought it was almost like
yeah, there were two.
Like, I'm just going to take this away. I'm just going to not going to let you catch it, and they didn't call that. I thought that was way more obvious to me than the one in the end zone, and they just didn't call it. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think they let the DBs play a lot. Frank, I don't know what you thought. I thought Elliott Washington was allowed to play. Kimber gets a lion's roar from me for the way he played in the second half. I thought overall we're allowed to be very, very physical. I don't remember a pass interference called in the game.
No, I mean, Penn State cornerbacks got, twice. Was it at the end of – was it in overtime or the end of regulation where they got a couple of – they didn't get it – I mean, they didn't get called for either of them, but they were –
It was in overtime. That's what NBC4 led with. It was in overtime on USC's opening possession, the chuck down the line. Yep.
Yeah, right. Both twice they I don't know, I want to say they got away with it, but I mean they could have got flagged for either of them.
Yeah,
could have.
That's how it is with interference. That's just the nature of that. But
that's a good. But you know what? To see defensive backs play like that is a good sign, flag or not, and to see Drew Allar be able to take some risks. I mean, you have his arm and his abilities. You got to be able to do that, and sometimes you're going to get a bad interception. But I liked him throwing the ball down the field and taking a shot on the first interception. Second one was, I'm not sure why he was trying to throw that ball the way he was.
Yeah, that was first down, wasn't it? First or second.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first guy should have intercepted it, and of course, when that happens, then the second guy gets it. I mean, nothing good was happening there, but he's not afraid to use his abilities. I mean, I like that the way he's opening things up. I mean, and the way you bounce back is what you got to do, and we saw none of that against Ohio State, Michigan in that sense, or Mississippi. So you got to have it going forward.
Okay.
Where does this final drive rank? We're 30 years removed from 1994. And obviously, certain things have to go right. This was not a drive. I'm not going to compare this drive to the drive against Illinois and everything there against the top defense in the country and things like that, because it's not. It's not on that level. But where does this drive rank for a game-winning or a game-defined, I'll say game-defined because it didn't win the game, but a game-defined drive to put this into overtime?
Well, the overtime win over Michigan, I thought Hackenberg had one that was in that game that was tremendous. I thought now I'm drawing up. I thought the one at the end of that Iowa game that we were just talking about.
Oh yeah, that would
definitely be one. As far as one, I can't think of that many that were with the game on the line. I don't know.
I mean, Clifford had the one at Purdue to open the season.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah.
I mean, that game didn't have the same impact. No. I mean, it was big considering it was the opening game of the year.
On the road in the conference, yeah.
Not quite the same as maybe what's in stake here, but that was a good one. I mean, I don't think this one's quite like the one at Iowa in 2017 because that was a walk-off touchdown when
the game.
Incredible. I mean, it had some similarities, I guess, I mean, did have some pretty stunning plays the same way. Fourth down
conversions. I mean, that's what people are going to remember. And that was unbelievably clutch by Allar and by Fleming. And the first one, they could have punted there. I mean, it's 4th and 7 and they're in their own territory. That wasn't an automatic call to go for that. I mean, I can't remember exactly how much time was left, but there was a manageable amount where if you can get a 3 and out. Now, obviously, the odds are against you getting a 3 and out, but anyway, I just thought that was.
I'm going to compare it to Minnesota 2016 for me, and that was kind of the game that changed everything.
Yeah.
For James Franklin at Penn State, the bomb to Irvin Charles, and then.
No question.
Chris Godwin on 3rd down, and then Saquon won it in overtime with the run. But I think the way this could play out, this was a big game for Penn State. Yes, SC's unranked, but in terms of perception, if they lose the game, it's out. Mr. September's back. Penn State starts hot. Here it comes with a loss. I'm going to put that, if Penn State could continue on the track and get to where we think they could get to, I think that game's, right up there in terms of impactfulness. And hey, if they go undefeated, maybe it does equal the 1994 draft. Things you didn't like about the game, maybe X's and O's. Frank, you've talked about having the guys to pound the rock a little bit in the nasty streak. I was a little bit disappointed on that front. Too much for me.
2 weeks in a row, they didn't run the ball.
Yeah, too much finesse down by the goal line. One leads to an offensive pass interference, and I'm thinking, hey, line up and smack these guys in the mouth. I mean, they haven't been able to stop the run the last 2 weeks. Concerning?
Well, I'm not really sure. I really thought they would lean on that in this game, especially as the game wore on, because you got to be able to take down this defensive line. And they didn't do enough early downs and early in the game to be able to do that. I mean, they got in a point where they couldn't try to rely on it. And then you take away one of their big advantages. And I'm not really sure if it's, who's it. The line. I mean, I'm not sure the line the last 2 weeks has performed the way that it did against Illinois. I mean, I'm not sure why the struggles. I mean, they had their 2 running backs back. I mean, I don't know if Nick was quite 100%, but that was a little disappointing. And the defense, I mean, the slow start again, and defensively taken a long time in a sense to adjust. I thought to me, in some ways, they got out schemed on that side of the ball. I mean, USC was doing things to negate 2 pretty subpar offensive tackles, and Penn State did not really have an answer for it for much of the game, honestly.
Well, that's where I thought Riley was really impressive, where he just dialed up so much stuff to just allow Moss a second, the last second that he needed to go ahead and make a play, and some misdirection stuff and roll out and then throw back the other way, that kind of stuff. I mean, I thought, it was kind of weird the way Riley handled the very end of the game, but I thought he called a great game, especially in the first half. And it was kind of sobering from that standpoint from Penn State's defense to see them get lit up the way they did for a while. And as Frank said, 2 weeks in a row, not being able to run the ball against what should be very ordinary run defenses.
I mean, it's, in the second half, Abdul Carter and Dennis Sutton came up with a few plays. I just still expect more impact from them, especially early in games. And it's not really there. At one point, I mean, that Abdul Carter is going to dominate this offensive tackle. So what does USC do? They just let it happen and throw a screen pass over top of him. I mean, it was a perfect play call to help out your struggling tackle. And Penn State, I don't know. I think they need to be able, especially defensively, be able to step up the way they're playing in the fourth quarter. They got to be able to do a little bit more of that in the first half, or they're not going to beat Ohio State. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And they put themselves susceptible to a good game by another opponent, like even Wisconsin to me. So more from the big rushers, more from the stars on defense.
Yeah, the way we thought they were going to play against big opponents coming fresh off of the Illinois game, it's harder to think that now. It's harder to think they can do that now. They're capable of that, and that seems like the aberration when at the time we thought that was going to be their thing, and maybe it still will be, but it's weird and concerning if you're a Penn State fan that they were not 2 weeks in a row of this now.
Isn't it kind of a weird feeling that you guys predicted both wins with Penn State scoring in the 30s? I thought Penn State should win this game because they're a better team, 31-17, but I predicted that they would lose 24-23 was my prediction for this game. So they come out with a win, and I had Penn State going 11-1 to start the year on our very first episode. And yet, I'm actually more worried about games going forward after this thrilling OT win based on what I saw. Isn't that that's kind of a weird feeling, isn't it? So I predict them to lose.
Well, I know what you mean. Yeah, it is. It is a kind of
like what the defense, like how it happened. It didn't really happen the way I thought the loss that I predicted would happen, because USC came out and like thoroughly thumped the defense in the first half.
Yeah,
I didn't think that would happen. And it did. I thought it would be schemed and kind of like a more grinding type game with, longer drives and execution. But no, like a fake double reverse, 75-yard gash. Like I didn't see these things happening.
On the other hand, Penn State, if Penn State's going to get where it wants to go, it was going to have to be in this kind of situation. This is almost like a rite of passage if you're going to be a really good team. It's like Drew Allar had to be put in a situation, because of all the crazy stuff that happened in this game. Drew Allar had to be put in a situation where he could really deliver the goods against good athletes with a game on the line, with his team in some trouble. If he doesn't do it, it's not going to get done, in order to get where you want to go. And today that happened.
I mean, is this the first walk-off field goal win for them since Ireland in 2014?
Yes. James said it was, and then we kind of looked it up, and after when we were writing, and yes, it was.
So it didn't happen like
game, obviously.
Yeah. Right. So it didn't happen exactly. The win didn't happen the way I thought, not the way you thought, Andrew. But though Bob Flounders of Penn Live predicted an overtime game, at least, though he had Penn State losing, which I didn't see either. So I think you just have this team. I guess we've been talking about it since the beginning, is the development steps for this team. It was never going to be a team that comes out to start the season as looking like a top 5 team. They got themselves there. I'm not sure they still are, but they've earned the opportunity to keep trying to prove it. And if you can keep taking some steps, I guess the hope is you actually put an entire game together coming up. I guess the good and yet the curious is they haven't done that still. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, they may not be the number 4 team in the country, but I can't think of anybody who's ranked below them that I think deserves to be. I mean, everybody has flaws, and I think the exception would be Texas. I think Texas has been pretty seamless. I mean, they tore it up again today against a rival that's pretty good. They're the only one, and again, I don't think you can argue too much with number 4 for Penn State, because even though USC doesn't have a good record, they're obviously, in terms of the athletes, in terms of the coaches, in terms of the weapons, they're obviously a pretty elite opponent. And we talked about them having their back to the wall. I thought they played like their backs were to the wall today. I really did. I thought they emptied the chamber and played decent defensively for stretches, even though they're not great defensively. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? This was legitimately a good win.
Right. And I mean, they're going to be number 3 now too, right? I mean, they can't not move above Ohio State, right?
I think
Ohio State has to drop a few spots. That's just the nature.
Oh, so you think Penn State is 3?
Penn State's going to go to 3. They're going to go
right?
Yeah. They're going to go. And
I would not put them 3 as a result of that Ohio State or Oregon game, but it doesn't matter, obviously, because the committee is the one that does it, and they don't start doing it until November. So, it doesn't matter what they're ranked right now, but they are in pretty good shape to make the playoff. I think we can safely say that.
How do you go about in the middle of the season keeping these guys, healthy, letting them regenerate a little bit, and then getting into necessarily work, because you don't want a slow start on the road against Wisconsin. That's a different environment. This environment out here was laid back. The stadium wasn't loud. Completely different environment than what is in the Big Ten. For anybody who comes out here, it's a completely different environment. There is no random loudspeakers. There's no music being played. The USC band is big. A couple of cartoon skits and things. Love that they have the out-of-town scoreboard up constantly. Can we please get that everywhere? That should be a universal law. So you don't have to be on your phone.
There ought to be a law.
Exactly. There ought to be a law on that. So Big Ten commissioners got to get on that. I mean, completely different environment than what you're going to experience in Madison.
Well,
road slow starts are dangerous. That's,
couple of things. They said the crowd was 75,000 and it seats 77.5. Not even close. And I was amazed how many Penn State people were there. I mean, this is 3,000 miles from home. And at one point, USC has the ball and Penn State's defense is on the field and they're going like this to the crowd.
Yeah.
they're egging on the crowd and in a visiting ballpark. You're right. It's not the same. And even after the game, you didn't see people like stomping around, foaming at the mouth, cursing the way you would if you, at Auburn when Penn State smacked the crap out of Auburn a couple years ago. It's different out here, no question.
Really different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you focus because they still do have challenges that they can lose, and that in 2 weeks they have another one. So I don't know.
Wisconsin looked pretty good today. I think Rutgers Rutgers is a team that is decent and usually defends and usually plays that ground game style. And they went to Rutgers and really ran it. It looks like really ran it and just beat them up.
Right. So, I mean, you could look at the stats. I mean, Penn State's defense did not perform to me the way that you would ever had hoped. I mean, to me, their best game was the first game of the year in a sense.
No question.
And so, I think there's people still wondering. I'm getting emails in the middle of the game about Tom Allen. So, not happy ones. Okay. So I think there's some doubt. I think there's doubt, and I think there's plenty for Penn State's coaches to work on. I mean, to show these guys, will it get done? I mean, I don't know. I thought the defensive backs in some regards maybe took a step forward kind of today.
Certainly a challenge for them. This was a real challenge for them.
Yeah, I'm just expecting more from the front seven in certain ways. And I think there's more to get. The key is unlocking it, right? I mean, we're 6 games in. Are they gonna be dominant in the first half? Is that going to happen? I mean, I don't. I guess the good thing is it's still out there. But
yeah, I think it is still out there, and maybe he has to rethink a little bit. Allen, I'm talking about personnel a little bit, formation a little bit. I don't know.
There was some confusion. I noticed that sometimes confusion, or it seemed like confusion. I don't know if it's planned, to throw the offense off. But I saw Kobe King was very animated at times out there.
He really was.
Yelling at the backside.
Maybe that's part of it. Maybe they just aren't.
I just want to point that out.
Alignment sound and gap sound all the time. Maybe that's part of it. And they can. That seems like a thing that can be improved upon.
I mean, Tony Rojas still needs to take another level, another step. I mean, he's not the linebacker that yet, not really. I mean, he's still a young guy, maybe, not so much a knock, but he's been given a lot of potential congratulations and everything else. But, he's a main player that, to me, I mean, is still, there's times where he just whiffs on tackles. And we're getting to the point now where you hope you lock that down a little better. I mean, with his ability.
Yeah, Dom DeLuca played a lot of snaps. It appeared to me in the second half. He played a lot of snaps, him and King together on the field. Now, I don't know if that meant Rojas was a little banged up or they just felt like he wasn't playing well. I don't know. I didn't notice the defensive tackles didn't pop to me as much as they usually do, but that can be very deceptive. It's a little bit of a mystery that they're not better defensively, especially right out of the gate on the road at West Virginia. It was by far their best performance so far.
I did think Zane had a good game along the line. I thought he was disruptive, and I just thought things got away from them. It's tough. You could disrupt a lot of stuff, but if it's not in your area, I mean, what could you do?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's right. And again, I thought USC had a really good game plan offensively, and for stretches really executed it well. So you got to maybe give the other guys some credit times too. Yes. But yeah, Penn State's got a ways to go if they're going to defensively. It's funny that I think the offense might be a little bit ahead of the defense now.
You said James was fired up because I asked you off camera, was he relieved and stuff like that? What about the guys? Like, did they seem like they, it was almost like, oh, glad this one's over. We could put it behind us. What was their vibe like, coming out? Because I always think the best sound from players is after a road win. Guys just mingle out, they're grabbing pizza and they're getting on the bus. And I always think that's like the best time to interview them.
They seemed really happy. I didn't get much with the players because frankly, I had to run upstairs to make deadline after James, but did, walking around there, just got a sense of it, watching those guys come out and they seemed happy, but not like crazy, like not delirious. I was a little surprised. Now, James kind of said it was pretty delirious in the locker room immediately afterwards. And of course, he said it's going to be delirious on the plane ride home. So maybe I was getting the wrong sample size or whatever. But, I didn't see – it almost seemed like James was more excited than the players were. And James gets pretty excited, let's face it.
You did see what the Penn State players were trying to plant the "We Are" flag.
Yeah, they were fired up at the end. There's no doubt about that.
I didn't see who was trying to plant it, but the number off the top of my head didn't look like somebody that was on the field a lot that was trying to plant the flag.
That's interesting.
I don't like that. Yeah. Don't like that at all. I like you guys. Hopefully everybody else does. And I really like the guy coming on after this. We got a great interview coming up with Brad Spider Caldwell, Penn State legend. Make sure you tune into that. Gentlemen, anything to add before we get to Spider and some great stories?
Well, they're going to be favored in all but one of their remaining games. And this is the best opportunity of the Franklin era, I think. Now, at this point, that 16 team, that was a runaway. That ended up being a runaway train that turned out to be something really special. But at this point, all things considered, they're in their best position to make a big run that they've been in October in the Franklin era.
Right. And if nothing else, you want to see what Andy Kotelnicki can scheme up for the next game out. So unfortunately, we have to wait 2 weeks for that. Otherwise, It's very good that we all have at least one more week without a Penn State game for a breather, for a step back, for a trip to Hawaii, for just enjoying Lebanon for all of its finest. That's it. To each his own.
It's a cultural mecca, my friend. It's a cultural mecca.
Just a reminder, holiday season is coming. Make sure you grab your Four Queens, make the boilo. It's a Coleridge delicacy, and it's great for the tailgate, folks. Mix that with some of Kovalanik's kielbasa. Joining the BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast right now, a man that does not need any introduction whatsoever. There's few men in sports that have only one name: Jordan, Ichiro, Kobe, Spider, Brad Spider Caldwell, Penn State legend and icon, joining us here. It's my honor to have you on the podcast, Spider.
Thanks, Andrew. You were too kind on that. You're very, very kind. But it's unbelievable that the Spider name is like, it's crazy how that took off when I was, I got that name when I was at my first week here as a freshman manager, and it's stuck ever since. It's pretty cool.
It's a great nickname, and absolutely it had to stick. Spider, I've known you for 15 years.
Long time. Yeah.
Been a great 15 years of my life, and you've enriched my life and my ability to cover Penn State. I was there on your last day walking out of the football building when you went into semi-retirement.
Midlife crisis moment.
What's it like now in your role? Like, you have Landon Tegwell, and he has a great Behind the Wall podcast, and he's one of the young guys, and he's out of the Penn State program, but he's doing a lot talking about the program, bringing in positive news and positive vibes, in the social media sphere and the radio airwaves, everything, TV. You get to impart some of that knowledge that you have. Why is that important, and how much enjoyment do you get passing on all the knowledge that you have about Penn State?
Well, when Landon reached out to me, and I didn't know much about him and what what he was doing exactly, and I'm hardly knew what a podcast was at the time, to be honest with you. But I'm like, and I just saw a real enthusiasm and interest in a kid that's on the team now, and realized what he went through and the injury that he has that took out of his career, took away his football. But I thought, man, this kid's still enthusiastic, and it's neat to hear, and to have somebody that was reaching out to want to know more about the history, and I think. I was just really encouraged. I said, yeah, Landon, I'd love to help you out. Boy, when I went in, sit that first time in his podcast, and this kid's pretty good, and he just, and the questions he asked, and he was just, and I could just see he was just soaking it in. He just absolutely was like loving what he was, hearing, and stuff he hadn't heard before. And he's like, oh my word, we need to tell our guys this, these our guys need to know this stuff. And it just, it was really a fun interview to do. And he come back to me a week later and said, oh my word, the hits we had. And he just was so excited about, people reaching out to him after the interview. And he said, he just wants to know more. And it was just, so, and he said, hey, can I, we talked about your office, and you mentioned something, can I come tour your office and just see some of the history? And I said, I'd love it. Yeah, we'll do a walkthrough and let you film it. And he just, and I just watched him take it all in and ask questions. And he said, and again, he just said, I want to get this history out, and we got to get our guys to know this. So I just was really enthusiastic about that. And I told him, I said, yeah, Landon, that we need a bridge to these current guys. We've lost a little bit of that, and no fault to anybody. I just think, we were so used to, the 45 years of the same coach and keeping that connection. And then, it did get lost a little bit, especially through COVID, when it kind of got lost a little bit. So I just think is you don't see as many of the younger guys here in this Letterman's Club and not even realize what it is. And, and I think, and Landon wants to really bring that to sight that, hey, we gotta connect these guys to the past and know why they're here. Cause a lot of these guys aren't coming, in the old days, you came because of the traditions and history, and just seeing him learn the history, he was like, oh man, we gotta pass this on. And so I'm really excited about him maybe being a bridge for that. Yeah. You
mentioned all those years, the 45 and like your nickname that's stuck. You got a lot of road trips under your belt. You've done road trips out to USC. Yeah. You've done road trips all across the country and to Rose Bowls and Orange Bowls. What's the one road trip that I don't want to say was the most enjoyable, but you look back on it and say, you know what, that was the most hectic and it's the most fun to remember?
To pick my favorite one, I really enjoyed. I wanted to drive across country one time in the truck. I'm fortunate. We just, we'd load up the truck and the drivers would take it and go, and I'd meet them out there and fly with the team. But I always wanted to ride across country with it. So when I rode in, we went to the Fiesta Bowl in '96. We played Texas, and I rode to the Fiesta Bowl with Kevin Briscoe, who owned Hoyt Transfer at the time. And, it took us 4 days, and just, that was a blast. And just going out and, just having, the Penn State, and we had a new truck, that's the one that has the lion head on it with just white with the blue lion head on it. And the stripe on the top of it, and it just, and the horn people, and then you get booze, you get people blowing their horns, but just going through the travels and staying overnight and in the truck, and, the truck never shuts off the whole time, and you stop and road, truck stops, and it's still, you're at night, you're just feel like you're on a vibrating bed. It's, so but it was such fun, and I'll never forget this story. We kind of took a different way in, and we ended up going down to Tucson, and then we came up to Phoenix. Okay. And we got to Tucson, across the border, and Kevin, or the owner, the truck driver owner, wanted to pull into a car wash or a truck wash and get it all cleaned up to ride in style into the, into Phoenix. So we pull into this truck stop, and that's the first we turned the engine off the whole trip. So we were getting it all washed and everything. And so we get back in the, well, we're in the truck. We never got out of the truck. So pretty much they're done getting it washed, and a bunch of guys washed it. So we turned the key and dead. The truck was dead. Like, oh no, and it was the morning, when we needed to go start setting up that afternoon. And, we're like 2 hours from Phoenix. So guy comes up on the cab of the truck and he goes, truck, no start. Oh yeah, we're dead. We're he said, put in neutral. We're like, what do you mean put in neutral? Put in neutral. So we got to push it. So we put it in neutral, and he's like, pretty soon we start moving. I'm like, oh my goodness, what the heck? And like, so we look back behind us, little puny guys pushing this tractor trailer fully loaded with equipment. And basically we popped the clutch, and then she fired up. We got enough speed up with this guy's pushing that truck out. And I guess they do it all the time. It happens. And so we popped the clutch, and they're like, oh my word. So then we rode up into Phoenix, got the thing going up to Phoenix, and Kevin was worried about shutting it off. So we let it idle. We unloaded some stuff at the hotel, went over to the practice field. We practiced at Mesa Community College, and we pulled in there, got everything unloaded. And then when the truck was completely unloaded, we get back to the hotel, and then that's the first he'd shut it off again, but it was completely empty except for some stuff at the hotel we needed. We just left on, and the game day stuff too that we left on. And sure enough, the truck was dead. It wouldn't start again. But anyway, that was pretty amazing. That was one of my favorite memories, my favorite trips, and I love the Fiesta Bowl as it is. But since we're on the USC trip, I memories I have of USC, and we're talking about that. In my career, we only flew our equipment 3 times. In my 31 years, the 3 games we flew it to in the 31 years was USC in the 90-91 where we played out there, BYU in 92, and Texas. We played Texas in Austin. So now this is all before 9/11. So it's, we actually were physically on the planes loading stuff. And it's actually, we would go to Harrisburg, fly out of Harrisburg, and we took we would get down to Harrisburg and we loaded the plane, the belly of the plane, the same plane we flew out in. I physically myself was under the plane in the belly, throwing bags in, trunks, and they're going up the escalator. But you're taking trunks and you're flipping stuff over, trunks upside down. And when you get out to LA, you're unloading it into a strange truck and you have other guys helping you. You get to the Coliseum, you're unloading it there with other people that are kind of helping you. And it just, because you're not used to the companies that are helping. And by the time you get to the end of the locker room, you get everything open and you open up all your stuff. It's just a mess, wrecked, it's upside down, because trunks were turned upside down on their sides, stuff spilled. So it's miserable. And it's so, and I know the NFL does it a lot, but they have way less stuff. You don't think about it, but, we travel, our travel team, I think now is 74 players. It used to be 70, Big Ten rule. But now, the NFL has 49 guys, and they have, and people don't realize too, we have to take our sideline headsets, like all the communications on the sideline, that's all ours. We all bring that, where in the NFL, it's all, the stadium has it there. It's all regulated by the stadiums you go to, and it's already there, set, and they have teams that take care of that, where we actually set it up ourselves. So, now with all this, all the stuff they're doing now with, with the iPads and stuff like that, it's just even much more you have to deal with and carry and take. It's not provided by the NFL or the stadiums. So the volume is so much bigger. So, taking a truck, that's why it's such a challenge with having these games so far away, because you just don't want to fly it if you can help it.
One of the old school guys that took care of the Horseshoe and the visiting team at the Horseshoe when I was out there in 2017, just talking to him. I was chatting up Kevin Briscoe. I was wearing Kevin's, cowboy hat, actually.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to him. I said, what is your favorite team to come into the Horseshoe and deal with for the road guys? And he goes, the Penn State guys under Spider. Professional.
Seriously?
I swear. That's what he said. He's like, those guys had everything down to a science. He's like, I'm not playing with you. I'm not telling you just Penn State because you're here covering the team. He goes, I truly always loved coming here, always tried to get a little gift for them and a party present for them and everything else.
They were great. And Columbus was great to us. Those people, those security guys and all the guys that hosted us and helped us. I'll never forget too when all hell broke loose, and the whole thing with Coach and Joe and then Tom Bradley took over and went out there. That was our first away games after that all went down. I was so impressed. We got there Friday to start unloading that truck. Ohio State had an army of people there. The equipment manager was right there with them too, and he said, and literally we get off the bus, the bus with the equipment managers, and the truck was there, and they felt so bad. They literally were like, guys, what do you need? What can we help you with? We feel so bad. We really they were really, they said really remorseful with what we've gone through, and really wanted to give us do whatever they needed to help us with. So always respected that with them, and not sure if that would have happened at Michigan, but
they would say the same thing. They would say the same, and we do know, and there's great people at Michigan, and we say that in jest because that's a rivalry game, and that's what sports is all about. You're supposed to needle some people here and there. That is exactly why we love what we do. How much do you appreciate it? Just watching on game day, watching the guys down there and the way the games are playing out.
Oh yeah. I really loved this past game. Just watching the O line. I mean, I thought, the O line. I love what they're doing. I love how they're, I love how they move and some of these, and it's so neat seeing the huddle again. I'm a huddle guy, you know what I mean? And just seeing them break the huddle, and even that huddle where our center, he goes up, and then all of a sudden, we got that delayed huddle, and then they all run up and then just do a quick off the ball. I mean, that's just, it's cool, and I really. I like the stuff we're doing offensively. It's just different, and it's a lot of fun to watch, and we're keeping that, just Warren and the tight end, Tyler's just doing a great job too, and we set some great tight ends here, and he's just keeping that tradition going too on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, having the two strong running backs, and we're still trying to get Franklin to get that fullback in there a little more. We got Tyler's
You're so old school. You're so old school. I love it. But hey, an offensive lineman in motion, that's kind of like a football or a fullback. It's not Kajana Carter in an elephant backfield with Whitman and Milne or one of those other guys, or even Aaron Harris or something like that. Yeah. But we'll take it. We'll take it where we could get it. And speaking of cool, I've been in your office many times, and I know Landon came up and you showed him around. Your office is one of the coolest offices you could possibly have. The Game of the Century poster right behind you out in the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, there's just so much cool history. I'm looking at that photo on the left back there. I believe that's the Capital One Bowl against LSU, where Navarro Bowman was picking up turf and just slinging it behind them and things like that. What goes through your mind when you walk into your office and you just something catches your eye and it's like, okay, this is the moment I'm gonna fixate on when I'm having my morning tea or my coffee, or maybe you're drinking Gatorade like you're on the sidelines. What is the picture?
It's funny because I had this kind of set up at home. A lot of this was at home, and I never really had an office when I was in the equipment room. When I was the equipment manager, you just my office was the equipment room, so you didn't really have room to hang anything and put stuff up. So I had it at home, my man cave, and then when I got this new job in operations at the stadium, and then got an office, I'm like, I can bring my stuff. I want to be able to enjoy it here. I want to be here more than I'm going to be at home, sitting there, and I want people to enjoy it. I seriously said I want people to see this stuff, and it's just me looking at it. So I'm going to really bling this office up, and I just want to bring it in because I had stuff that when I left, I didn't want it to get lost, and I didn't know, with the changes and Coach Franklin coming in, and I worked with him for his first 6 months and transitioned his whole staff, but I just love bringing people in here, and I seriously, I come in every day, I just sit down and I'm like, and I'll focus on one picture. Every picture in here has something that I've actually, and even the action shots of some of these guys, you can't really see it, but above me I have there's a picture of Zwinak, and I just remember, he's just a bull, and he's up there, and his pants are just all green and stained, and I'm like, I remember trying to get his pants clean. They were always miserable to try to get clean, Just there's a memory in every one of the photos, and even right over my shoulder here, the other way here, that picture there, it's hard to see, but that's the 1985 Notre Dame game. When it was we played here at Beaver Stadium, it was a mud bowl, and we crushed Notre Dame here, and we beat them like 36-6 or whatever it was, and I just remember that game being one of the coldest games I ever worked at Penn State, because it was It was 33 degrees in a driving rainstorm. And I was student manager at the time running footballs on the sideline when Jerry Fouts was their coach. I'm on the Notre Dame sideline in Beaver Stadium running balls, and it was like impossible to keep them dry, freezing cold. My feet are underwater, and it was, like I said, it was 33 degrees in a rainstorm. Ruined the field, was just destroyed. But anyway, just again, the memories of everything. But I just love bringing people in, and myself, I come in with my tea and sit and just like focus on a picture for the day and just start reflecting back, But no, the biggest thing is when people come by, museum, bringing a tour through, and sometimes if I'm here and my door's open, people peeking in.
You're a living museum. You're a living museum. I've always said that. So when the tours come by, what are the top either 3 things that people point out, or the top 3 things that you're like, oh, you got to see this over here. You got to check this out.
Well, obviously, I love to show them, Joe's last pair of shoes he wore. Which they're over. They're up there on the up on the top there.
Yep.
And then his jacket when he won his 400th win. Okay, I cherish those. And then that whistle hanging on that picture of Joe's pants and shoes he's wearing above the shoes. That's an old whistle from the 80s that he personally tied the shoestring on. And I've got I've got his old locker tag from years ago. One of his lockers when he first originally moved into the East Area locker room back in the early 80s. So, but anyway, those 2 things are, but I love showing people the size 18 shoe I have that was Levi Brown's, because it's the biggest shoe that I ever had had a person, biggest player I ever had shoe wise. And I love showing them the shoe I found in the storeroom below the old ice rink, in Greenberg, and it's a cleat from the 1930s that's pieces of leather nailed together with long finish nails. It's right here.
Oh wow, that looks like something you beat frozen beef with like before you fry it.
Yeah, right, exactly. This was like in the 30s, and we had the match to this in a trophy case in the old football office at Greenberg for years. I don't know, it must have ended up in archives or whatever, but this was the match to it. But it was down in the ice rink, and it was damp and wet, so that's why it's kind of decayed. But but look at it. It's pieces of leather nailed together with long nails in it. I mean, you imagine getting tramped on by this thing in the mud in
no,
crazy. So anyway, that, and I love showing them the wristbands. I have a wristband from Matt McGloin, which would be Coach O'Brien's offense. I got a wristband it's Michael Robinson's wristband from the Orange Bowl in 2005 when we beat Florida State in the Orange Bowl in the triple overtime. And I have Kerry Collins' wristband from the Rose Bowl, 94. And you got Matt McGloin's has 159 plays on it. Michael Robinson's has 140 plays, and Kerry Collins has 10 plays on it.
10 plays.
10 plays. That's it.
Oh man,
it's it.
That's insane. And
it's just like that's that offense. It was just like a lot of the plays, I will say, a lot of the plays were taken in with the tight ends, the wideouts would take the play in at the huddle, and they would call the plays. But the plays there, in case they didn't have time to send it in, or Kerry had to change it change the play, he would look at his wristband. But again, it was just these 10 basic plays that, I show Wally, who was the backup quarterback, I remember that play. So, and it's just, I always reflect back to that team. And I think I'll never forget when we beat Minnesota in the Metrodome, that first game of the season that year, we killed them by, was it 56-6 or 3 or whatever. And I remember after the game shaking hands with the coaches, and I hear one coach Minnesota coach tell our coach, we knew exactly what you're going to run. We couldn't stop it. I mean, that just tells you that's a team doing exactly what they're supposed to do on every single play to perfection. So that was a fun team to watch. I tell you, just a fun team.
You're the gatekeeper of the uniforms. When they did the Generations of Greatness, I remember coming up and talking to you, and Coach Franklin said, "Hey, Spider's input and it's about you talking about like the uniforms and things in years past played a large part in it." If you had to design your own uniform, because I have my Penn State uniform, I want the white piping back on the blue jerseys. I want the blue piping back. I want everything. And then I got another question coming off of this. But what is Brad Spider Caldwell's perfect Penn State uniform?
Well, I wouldn't change a thing, of course. Me personally, I like the numbers on the helmets. I like and I do like the stripe on the pants. I originally took that idea to Coach O'Brien to do it, and because he was looking for anything he could do just to throw the players a bone at that time. He was just trying to make them, make it fun as he could, and and he was looking to do something with him with the uniform. And I said, well, listen, we got to be careful with that, and bling out that uniform. So I said, I know that just from the fans, I just know they really love. They talk about the 68-69 team all the time. They just love that era. And I said, in the Capoletti era and those guys. And I said, and I always thought about, maybe we'll do a throwback where we put the stripe on the pants, numbers on the helmet. There was a little bit of an overlap year in '67 where they had both, but mostly it was the stripe was first, and then we had the names on the numbers on the helmets. I said that would be, I said that would be ideal. And then we had the gray face mask back then and whatnot too. So, so I think, ultimately, and he was going to do it. And Coach O'Brien was actually going to do that, but we were going to do it the next year for the Syracuse. I'm sorry. Yeah. We played Syracuse at MetLife, which was the first game of the season in 2013. And I kept asking him that summer, "You want to do it, Coach? We got to decide. We got to do this." And we got the uniform in, ready to go. And he goes, at the end, he just said, "Nah." I said, "I got to worry about winning games. I don't want to do that. Not yet." So he said, "Shelf it." So then
Irishman focused on the game, and we see the results at Boston College.
Yeah. So I got to win games.
Bill O'Brien. I love that.
So then again, when Coach Franklin came in, same thing that spring. He wanted to, look at different ideas and stuff like that. And I kind of showed him the idea, what we had going, and he loved it. He said, "Yeah, we should do that sometime." And he didn't do it right away, obviously, too. He waited a little bit too. But and I'll credit him too, for he's the one. Coach Franklin made that final decision to take the names back off the jerseys. Mm-hmm. But he called me. He brought everybody in, the local letterman. He brought Goon, Kapakis, Todd Kolka, a bunch of guys who were local, Kenny Jackson, and got their opinions. Actually, was sitting in his office. He said, "Should I take these names back off?" And all of us were like, "Absolutely." And I said, "Coach, if we don't, we're not defining the guys that stayed, because it is now, because that's the thing. If you ever watch ESPNU in the future and you see a player, a Penn State player wearing a jersey, name on his jersey, that was the guys that stayed and made the commitment to stay here. And that was the whole concept of that. Let's honor those guys. So I was, really, it was great that he took them back off. And then we explained to the players at the time why we're taking them back off and the whole history, So, and I think he's really kept that history going with the players and keeping the name off. And that's just who we are. Because now USC is the only team that's never had a name on the back of their jersey.
Compare and contrast the emotions when you're sewing, you and Mrs. Caldwell are sewing the names on, and then when Coach Franklin is telling you the names are coming off. I love that picture. I've always loved that picture.
So, what was your question? I'm sorry about that.
Compare and contrast the emotions of when you and your wife are sewing the names on the jersey.
Yeah.
And then the emotions when Coach Franklin told you they were coming off. But it's just in that moment.
Well, when I first putting the names on was like the thought of it was nerve wracking. We were just like, oh boy, and I said to Coach O'Brien, we just got to make sure the lettermen understand why, because and people might think it's funny and we're talking about it, but it's like it was really a tradition of Penn State. They that plainness is just part of our MO that we always embrace. I mean, it was when we first. I mean, when I put the swoosh on the jersey, that was a big deal, and guys were kind of fussed up about that. But hey, so guys, and it was kind of like, guys, we had Russell before that, the Russell tag, and then the champion tag is down here by your hip. Now Nike just was branding as smart. They put it where you see it more, so it's no different. Okay, so then when. And then the bull patches was the big thing. I mean, we never wore bull patches. Every year they wanted you to wear bull patches back, and even in the, early 80s, but we just refused to wear them, and then, until we started getting fined in the contracts. If you don't wear these, you will be fined the school. And it was big money because of the sponsorship. So we kind of got forced our hand into it, even though the first year, which was technically The first one we really had to wear them was the Alamo Bowl in '99 against Texas A&M. And then actually Mr. Curley, the AD, called me up and said, "Oh, Spider, I screwed up." And I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "We signed a contract and I didn't read the fine print, and we have to wear the patches, or we're getting fined like $50,000." And I'm like, I said, "Well, did you say anything to Joe?" Joe, yeah. He said, "Yeah." Joe said, "I'll pay it myself." He was literally going to pay it himself. And then Tim said, "Listen, Coach, this is the future. If we don't pay it, it's going to get worse. You're going to have to do it every year."
$50,000.
$50,000.
That's pennies in today's world.
It is. And that was in 1999. So we went with it. And so then Tim was basically telling me, the patches are coming. We're going to need to put them on, so, and then, but then now it's mega bucks now if you don't wear it. And the players like it. I mean, now the players are used to it. They like it.
Yeah.
We give them something different for one game, and then we give the jersey as a bowl gift. Afterwards, they get to keep the jersey. So
you mentioned that swoosh going on. What was going on with the jerseys in 1994? Well, Kerry Collins had a different jersey than the lineman. Kerry had the Nike written out. Nike, I'm sorry.
Yeah, with the square.
Yep, in the square. And then some guys had just a swoosh on there's like 17 different versions of Penn State jerseys. Explain to me the differences in the 1994 jerseys.
Well, it basically was, think about it, 1993 was the first year Nike ever made apparel, ever. They started making football shoes in 1983. And my first year as a student manager, we were taking all the Adidas and Spot Belt shoes out, and we were bringing in all these new Nike shoes in 1983. Okay, so they made, because they were just track shoes up to that point. So, and that's when then Penn State really made the commitment to Nike, and that how Joe become really, and we were one of the first 4 teams in the country that was with Nike. That's it. Okay, so that's why the relationship with Joe and Phil Knight was such a strong bond, because we took the risk and took Nike way early before anybody else did. Well, the 3 other teams did. So then they didn't start making apparel. Like I said, I'm talking anything. I mean, like, this stuff. I mean, they didn't make any of this stuff till 1993. So literally the 93-94 was their first ever jersey attempts, and they sucked. They were just material wise, they didn't fit real good, and just so we were getting multiple jerseys in. To Nike's credit, their research and development team came to our place all the time, and they loved us. We did a lot of their research and development, and then especially we would field test their stuff in the off season, especially in the spring practice. They'd fly in here from Oregon. They would be here, their research and development teams, and they would test stuff because they liked us because we were in a northern climate, we were on grass, and we were plain white or blue, so they could hide it in plain sight, in testing and stuff like that. So when we those jerseys were just, like I said, they weren't fitting right. Guys were complaining this and that, so they were just constantly tweaking them. So, and every time they would get a new design, they put a swoosh somewhere else or different style of swoosh. And Kerry's that little square Nike thing with which it's kind of cool. I would like that.
I love it. I think it's one of the. I think that Nike should go back to it. I love that.
I do too. That was because basically they put that because of the visibility. He was an open sleeve, which if you look, his sleeve is there's no trim on it, and it's open, so it's for flexible for throwing. So that just was there because it was it was, they knew it was a visible spot and different logos. So yeah, that's why. And we even got new Bulls. The jerseys for the bowl game, if you look at the Rose Bowl, they're like silver, like it's like a shiny silver swoosh, inside it. You have to notice it next time, but and that was it for the bowl. And Nike's funny. So their jerseys kept getting a little bit better every year, but even their football, we field tested their football. We're the first team to use their football. A lot of their that dry fit, you talk about Nike dry fit, stuff that all the undergarment stuff. We tested that for a long time that nobody even knew that. That your gloves, some of the new gloves, the receiver gloves, we saw those gloves and tested those gloves 2 years before they were in Dick's Sporting Goods store for kids to buy. So it was a lot of fun. We used to have to sign waivers, to keep stuff secret and don't do this and that, and even the players would, but it was a lot of fun being part of that research team and development. It was seeing the newest stuff was pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people really know how in-depth the relationship between Nike, Coach Paterno, and Penn State football and the university really in general went. You've talked a lot about Bill O'Brien. And I always love Bill O'Brien's stories. Unfortunately, I don't think there's enough of them because he was only here for 2 years. And
yeah,
I really do love talking about Coach O'Brien because I thought he was always great to us in the media, like straight shooting, always answered a lot of the questions in his own way. It was almost like mini Bill Belichick. And never forget when he said to the media room, "You guys suck." And then after the Wisconsin game, he called a bunch of fighters. We'll go with that one. But you have a great story, and I don't think anybody knows this. And you told me this one time, and this is the last question I'm going to ask you.
Sure.
The overtime game against Michigan.
Yeah.
Walking off the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great Penn State story. Mm-hmm. And if you don't mind me asking about it, because I don't think a lot of people know it. Yeah. Can you share that moment walking off the field after a big win?
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest wins in Penn State history because that's coming off the loss to Indiana. Yeah. You never know how things are going to spiral. And I just think that's a huge moment in Penn State football history.
Yeah. And really good. I mean, just a great feeling, obviously, coming off there and just, and I'm one of the first ones in the locker room to open the door and the team starts coming in. Well, the team was really celebrating and everything out there. Well, Coach O'Brien was one of the first guys in the team. He came in the locker room. He was the first guy in there, and I'm in there too. And he just smiling from ear to ear. And he don't show emotions much, but he come up to me, he goes, "Man, it's Spider." He said, "What do you think Joe would have thought of that win today?" That was the first thing in his mind. What do you think Joe would have thought of that win? I said, "Man, Coach, he'd have been proud of you, man. That was one for the ages." Give me a big hug. So it's just, that was a special moment. It really was. Which I'll never forget. So,
and the reason I think that's an important story is because of whatever's read out and perception, because words aren't said or things aren't done. There's always been a perception of, well, nobody pays attention to this or nobody pays attention to that. And that's why I always think that people at Penn State should know that after one of the biggest wins, and probably the biggest win, well, maybe second biggest win for Coach O'Brien at Penn State, that's the first thing he says, walking off the field to the man, to an icon. And that's you. You are Mr. Penn State, to a lot of people. So
thanks, buddy. I one funny story too, I always love, in spring practice when, I'm getting to know Coach O'Brien and he's getting comfortable with being here and everything. And, and we're still learning each other's, what he wants, what we do. And I remember he leaned on me a lot because he wanted to know, and he was real curious of anything. And one time we're in Haluba Hall, and it's early on spring practice, and he called me over to Haluba, and he goes, "Spider, why is there 2 fields in here? Why does Joe have 2 fields?" So I'm trying to explain to him, "Oh, Coach," I said, he liked to have 2 separate practices, an offensive practice, a defensive practice. He said, and he would first, and then the second half of practice we'd go in one field. But he said he liked having separate practices, and guys can do their own things. Well, I want one big field where I can throw a nice long bomb, I said, "Well, Coach, you back up to that track in Haluba, you still have 70 yards. He said, well, we're never going to be in here anyway. I'm from New England. We're tough. We're going to be outside all the time practicing. We're not even going to use this building." Well, he didn't realize how the wet spring around here and the fields, it was like a swamp. I think of the 15 practices in the spring, we were inside 12 times of the 15. So it's the last week, the week before BlueWhite game, we're inside for like the 12th time. And he comes over to me and goes, "Spider, come here. The old man didn't win 409 games for nothing. I'm going to keep the fields just like this. I like it." So I just always really respected the fact that, he really respected how Joe did things. He wanted to know. He was curious, and he would field out. He did it for a while, and then he would do it his way eventually, which is fine. But I just always really respected that of Coach. But he was cool to work for. He really. We got a good friendship going, and he really was an honor to work for him too, and just to hear him, just to watch it, like you said, I always say, what was Bill O'Brien like? I said, he would just be his Bill O'Brien, if he could, would be just wearing his sweatpants with a dip in a Coors Light, watching film. That's his setting.
And today we would say one of us, one of us. Because that is what we would do, because that's what everybody loves to do.
I'm glad he's doing well too. I'm really happy for him in BC. Things are going well there. So
absolutely. Well, Spider, you're an encyclopedia of Penn State stories. We didn't get. I mean, I got questions I could go for days. We're on volume 1 of 26. Didn't even ask you about the first time polishing Coach Paterno's shoes. Oh. Didn't ask you, that first time walking in. You know why we didn't ask you that? Because we got plenty of times that you are going to be on the BlueWhite Tailgate Podcast.
I'll be back.
Just going to go through. One of them is going to take place in your office, by the way. We are going to.
All right, that sounds good. You got
to come up, because I could always use an excuse to come up and see you, because I miss you.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right, Spider. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure, Andrew. Good luck with the podcast too, buddy. Enjoy.
That is it for this edition of BlueWhite Tailgate Podcast. Very entertaining. We got great shows coming up. We have a lot of guys from the 2016 team lined up. Grant Haley, Trace McSorley. Thanks for listening. Make sure you reach out to us, BlueWhite Tailgate Podcast @gmail.com. We'll see you next week.